Hi, welcome to the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. I'm Dr. Sarah Gordon, and welcome to episode 58. We're calling this one Training for Real Life, Sustainable Performance, Coaching, and Confidence with my guest, Paul Capuzzo, founder and head coach of Capuzzo Multisport Coaching. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I love having coaches on the show. We learn so much from you all. And I said on one of the last episodes, not everybody has the resources or the means to have a coach. And so
Right.
we appreciate when coaches come on and teach us and educate us about human performance and living our best lives and going after our goals. So we really appreciate your time. And so thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So, just to kind of frame today's conversation, we're going to look at a balance between evidence-based, data-driven training, which we know is really important, and also being flexible and just understanding that it has to fit with your life, right? There has to be a balance. And from
Absolutely. Yep.
and everything that I've read about Paul, and I've read a lot of the testimonials from his, athletes that he coaches, I think that you understand that balance that's needed for people to be successful.
Right.
So I want to talk about that a bit today. But first, let me give you some background information about our guest. Paul is in the New Jersey area, and he is, like I said, the founder and head coach of Capuzzo Multisport Coaching. He's the 2025 USA Triathlon All-American and an Ironman 70.3 World Championship finisher. What locations were those races in?
That was in Marbella, Spain last November.
Oh, nice. That must have been beautiful.
It was absolutely amazing, wonderful experience.
They pick some really nice locations. And
Well, Iron Man does a good job of making it appealing.
sometimes like when people talk about, oh no, which one would be the easiest swim or which one would be the easiest bike? I feel like they always pick these locations that are beautiful, but they're always challenging in some way.
Yes, there's every event there's always pros and cons to every Ironman event. The ones that have a fast swim have a hilly bike.
Right.
So they're going to get you one way or the other. So you just got to
Exactly.
prepare and hope for the best.
Okay. Well, so you're currently coaching over 20 adult athletes, runners, triathletes, who I guess have a range of ability levels. So you're pretty much from beginners to more advanced athletes.
Correct. Yep. Young adults, older adults, all ability levels, different goals, athletes with little kids, athletes with major job restrictions, and so part of the fun of being a coach is accommodating everybody's constraints that they have and making it into a workable schedule for them that enables them to improve.
I want to get through your bio, but I like to talk about that a little bit today. How do you tailor that? How do you know? I mean, it's a lot of different um, needs there. So how do you do
Right.
that? And maybe that's the data. Maybe, you stay focused on the data.
Yep.
So,
I have to balance those two.
so you're also a USA Triathlon Level 2 certified coach, a USA Cycling Level 3 certified coach. You work off of Training Peaks, the Training Peaks platform where
Correct.
you interact with your athletes. And you also hold the Ironman University Certified Coach designation from doing doing that academic program.
Correct.
Okay, so you understand this stuff pretty well. How long have
Yeah.
you been coaching?
Uh, I I've been coaching probably since the late 90s. I mean, I was a runner in high school and college, so I've always been a competitor and competitive athlete. Um, I started coaching track and field in the late 90s, and I started competing as a triathlete in 2003. And I was always kind of, when you're a coach and an athlete, you're always trying to figure out what you could do better.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't start officially triathlon coaching until about 7 years ago. But even before I started my coaching company, I was always, quote unquote, coaching somebody or, making a spreadsheet or throwing together a plan. And, um, I coached cross country and track on the high school level for a long time. So
That's cool.
in some capacity, I've coached hundreds of athletes, which is kind of fun. You learn something from every single athlete that you interact with.
I think it's important to also say that this, you're also you teach. You're a
Yep.
teacher. Do you want to share with our audience about, and that's kind of like being in a coaching role too, being a teacher.
Right. Yeah, I graduated college when I was 21 and I started teaching right away. So I've
Yeah.
been teaching for, oh boy, and I'm a math teacher, so give me a minute to add this up. 26 years at my current school, and I taught for, so I basically am in my 32nd year of teaching. I teach high school math and computer science. Um,
You don't look old enough to have taught for 37 years.
well, I'm 53, so
Wow. So, and are you still training like for yourself for events
yes, I'm
now?
especially sore because I just ran a half I just ran a half marathon yesterday. A
You
bunch of my
did?
athletes. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a
we went to,
race?
yeah, Asbury Park half marathon. So myself and 7 or 8 of my athletes and friends, we hopped in and ran, and it was a good day. Windy but fun. So,
Asbury Park. That sounds fun.
yep.
There's something famous about Asbury Park. Is it? I don't know
Bruce
what it is.
Oh, Bruce Springsteen. That's where
Oh, is that
that's
what it? Okay, I knew it
oh
was
yeah.
something.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's frame this conversation with your coaching philosophy, which I pulled out where you say, surround yourself with people who inspire you to be your best. I think
Absolutely.
that's so true because so many times on the show I talk to people about pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone, about pushing ourselves beyond our limits and what do we learn in that space. And I think when we align ourselves with people who push us to go further, we learn so much about ourselves. So tell me what that statement actually means to you.
So I right now in the world of triathlon, arguably the top three triathletes in the world are three Norwegian guys who train together.
Wow.
Um, so I think when you find people that are as passionate about whatever the goal is as you are,
Hmm.
that's the right kind of person to be around because you're like-minded in your goals and you're going to make the sacrifices you need to make to accomplish these goals. Um,
Hmm.
when I have a text thread of friends who are, great cyclists. A lot of them are better cyclists than I am, and we try to get together as often as possible because I know I will get better training with these people and also just kind of being around people who want to be successful.
Hmm.
I think that's a big part of success. And you can certainly you'll progress faster and better, with like-minded people than you would on your own, I think.
I bet you're an outstanding teacher, and I'm not just saying that to like make you feel good, but I think if you go into a classroom and I don't know what age you teach,
High school.
high school, with that attitude, you must inspire these students to maybe they're not listening completely because their heads are all over the place, but I'm sure you're planting seeds there.
No, it's tough. I mean, as a math teacher, most high school kids could frankly care less about math. So my mission, for the kids who don't need math for whatever career path they're pursuing, although they might not know it yet, but they probably will. But anyway, I just try to tell them, you'll never regret working your hardest. And I also often say that doing a good job at something that you don't want to do, like, I could say to the class, raise your hand if you want to do the homework tonight. No one's going to raise their hand. Nobody wants to do math homework, but there is value in giving your best effort to something that you don't really want to do, because no matter what you end up doing in life, there are going to be moments where you're like, I got to do this thing. I don't want to do it, but it's not going to get done until I do it. So I might as well just give it my best effort and get it done.
Yeah, discipline.
Yeah, discipline and learning the value of hard work. Maybe I'm old fashioned. I think
No,
there
it's
is hard.
yeah, I joked way back when I started this podcast. I had a friend from school who started it with me. I was like, "Come on, this ride with me." Um, and we used to joke like, "Thank you for the hard." I'm so grateful for the
Yeah.
hard. But we do. We learn a lot about what we're made of in the hard. And
Mhm.
it's fulfilling when you look back on things. You look at these mountains that we've climbed, whether it's an Ironman or PhD Journey, and it took a tremendous amount of hard work. There's so much
Uh,
satisfaction when you look back on that. So I agree with that 100%. Okay, so how do you transform a training plan into a like a balance in life? Because I think a lot of going after goals to be successful, we have to make space for it, so to speak, in our life. Like I know with my PhD journey, my life didn't really stop. I kind of like fit it around my life.
right.
But like, so how do you do that with like if you're going after an Ironman or you're going after some athletic goal, like how do you balance it all? How do you find space for it? How can you be successful? And even if you're willing to work hard, you still need to have space to do it.
Right. It's this is why being a coach is such a fun challenge. Everybody's puzzle is different. Everybody has different available hours. Everybody has, like I said, there's some I know people that travel for work all the time and they make it work. I coach one guy, he has a bike box and everywhere he travels, which is a lot. He packs up his bike and he brings his bike with him.
It makes it
Uh,
happen.
yeah, he makes it happen. And it's interesting because the it's funny, the athletes that I coach who are the busiest and who could most easily make an excuse to just skip the run or whatever, they're the ones that never skip. It
That's interesting.
because it's, like for example, I coach a woman who's an emergency room doctor and she has a 4-year-old or 5-year-old son. She never misses workouts. Now, if
Right.
anybody could get away with saying, "Listen, I just didn't get it done today," I'd be like, "Yeah, I get it. You worked in an emergency room for God knows how many hours. You're probably exhausted." Um, so it, there's definitely has to be, the discipline and the desire there, but it's also incumbent upon me as a coach to give them. I could write up the world's greatest training plan, but if it's not feasible for their lives, then what's the point?
Hmm.
It it has to take into consideration, like I said, little kids, available hours, job travel. It's, physical limitations, injury history. There's a lot of pieces to try to
So,
get to fit level.
what do you think motivates the athlete that you're talking about, the ER physician, to like never miss a workout? Where do you think that and I'm curious about that because that was my dissertation. My dissertation work focused on exercise motivations with older
Yeah.
athletes. Where do you think that comes from that? Because that's pretty impressive.
Um, she's just a very driven person. I think a lot of it was, before she started working with me, she was doing a ton of running and also a ton of CrossFit because she just had all this steam to burn off.
Yeah.
Like I can only imagine how stressful that
Yeah,
job
the
was.
stress.
So she would just go out and hammer all her runs and do a ton of CrossFit, which is fine. Um, she and I have had a lot of success as athlete and coach because I've managed to get her to, parse out the intensity more judiciously, which is something that, I know you want to talk to me about as far as,
Right.
effectively preparing for a race and effectively,
Right.
preparing for an endurance event. Um, so and yeah, and the other thing is she's successful because she's super coachable. And she
Oh, that's a good point.
when I said, listen, the science suggests that you'd probably be better off if you tried this instead of that. She said, okay, and and it worked.
So
um,
that's I just want to pause there for a second. The science. Okay, so tell me what that means.
So she's a great example because she, in the time that I've started working with, in the time that I've worked with her, which is almost coming up on 2 years now, she's gotten over a minute faster per mile in her marathon, which is a big jump.
That is,
Actually, she qualified for the Boston Marathon. She's running the Boston Marathon next Monday.
mhm.
Um,
A lot of people
so
I've heard
yeah,
through the
um,
show.
yeah. So, and this is something that's really interesting about effective endurance training, and it surprises a lot of people because it's counterintuitive. Even though you're trying to race fast, the bulk of your training has to be relatively slow. And you do the fast training, but you do it, in a very specific way, and you don't do nearly as much of it as you would think you'd have to do. Um, and it takes a lot of athletes until they have a good race. They don't
They probably
really
don't
believe
believe
it.
it, right?
Yeah, because like how am I going to get faster by going slower and doing less hard stuff? And all I just have to, I mean, I don't like to say trust me because it makes it sound like I'm like, some,
Right.
you know, guru, but but I just basically need to tell them just wait and see. It's going to work, and it works. Um,
So I this is a good time to maybe talk about the Strava study.
yeah. So for better or worse, Strava is essentially, for people who don't know, Strava is essentially the Facebook of, for athletes. Like,
Right. Training.
back in the day, athletes would post their workouts on Facebook, and 90% of their friends were like, I don't even know what you just did. Did you run a mile or a marathon? I don't even know what this is. So Strava is basically where it's just athletes posting their runs and posting their workouts, and it's other athletes on there who are actually interested in this boring stuff. Um, and when you post your workouts onto Strava, that data is public.
Okay.
So, some researchers went onto Strava, and they scraped the data of about 120,000 people who were preparing for a marathon, and they super duper analyzed this data, and they found a lot of really interesting takeaways. But the big takeaway, which is pertinent to our discussion, is people who did too much of their training too fast had slower marathon times. I,
That's interesting.
yes. And it's interesting because, you know, the gym mentality and the endurance athlete mentality are very different, as they should be. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that one is better than the other. I'm just saying an athlete who
Very
goes to
different.
a gym a couple times a week
Hmm.
is they're looking for something very, very different than somebody who's going to train for a marathon and run 6 or maybe even 7 times a week.
Hmm.
Um, so when people come from the gym mindset to the endurance athlete mindset, it takes a while for them to get used to the fact that not every workout is supposed to leave you red in the face. When you go to a
Right.
cycle, when you go to let's just say Orange Theory or something, they want to make you feel like you're getting your money's worth, and they want to give
Right.
you a great work, and they want you to go home and tell your friends a great workout that you had.
Yeah, I got crushed.
Yeah, but you can't. But then what's going to happen the next day?
You can't
You
move.
can't. You can't. Yeah, you can't do that every day. You
Right.
can do it a couple times a week, but a couple of times a week is not going to get you to the finish line of a marathon. So it's a different approach, and there has to be a lot of training for a marathon, which is frankly kind of boring training, and it doesn't really sell.
Yeah.
If if somebody went to Orange Theory, and the instructor said, "Hey, we're just going to kind of spin easy for the next half hour," you'd be like, okay, I could have done this at home. Why am I coming here?"
Well,
So,
it's kind of like understanding what the end goal is and
correct.
how to get there. So when I saw that you had presented on this Strava study, one of your
Mm,
presentations. And so I was curious. I went to look at it myself. And what's interesting, because then I was reading kind of some of the back and forth about it, is that, and we had talked about before we started, record today, is that the study suggests, let me read my notes so I say it correctly. The fastest runners in the data set featured the large training volumes achieved primarily by increasing volume in zone one,
Right, which is the easy zone.
which is what you're saying, that they did most of their training in this lower zone. But then some of the back and forth is like, well, but speed and pace is still important to get
Yes.
faster. So how do you balance that?
So the vast majority of let's just go with marathon because it's a great
Okay.
example. When you are when you are training for a marathon, let's just say you're running 50 miles a week, 40 plus of those miles should be talking pace miles, easy aerobic exercise. And then the last 10-ish, and that even that is kind of a lot. Um, the f maybe 10 to 20% of your weekly mileage is stuff where you are running right on your goal race pace. And it's interesting, athletes say this to me all the time. I'll give them a workout, say, for example, I'll give them 4 by 5 minutes at their goal marathon pace and maybe a little more fast running another day of the week. And the natural question is, all I have to do is do this pace for 20 minutes, and then suddenly magically on race day I'm going to do this for 4 hours. How does that work? And it's a very good question, and the answer is it's going to work because underneath the fast running that you're doing, you're building up this giant aerobic foundation.
Yeah.
That's one big takeaway, and
Building
the
the
other thing,
engine. You're building the
yes, you got
engine.
to, you know, um, you know, in this same presentation that you looked at that I gave recently, I highlight the volume of the world's greatest endurance athletes, and Nordic skiers are amazing to look at because they do hours and hours. Some of these guys are training 30, 35 hours a week. But again, the bulk of that exercise is easy exercise. And they know it's easy because they'll do what's called blood lactate testing. And they'll see what's going on in their blood. And if they're working too hard and the lactate reading is too high, they slow down.
But but that volume, that comfortable sweet spot for that steady volume pace,
Hmm.
it doesn't it kind of isn't it kind of dependent on how conditioned your body is, right? Because like somebody more conditioned, that might be a faster pace in zone,
Correct.
right? So it's very relative to
Correct.
to your conditioning and to your
Right.
okay.
Yep. But regardless of
So you
whether you're
can't
going to run,
compare like a zone one or zone two for somebody, one performance level is different to somebody another performance level.
well, yes and no. I mean, relative to their race effort,
Hmm.
those zones are essentially the same.
Okay.
Most athletes are not measuring their blood lactate. That's really for the super elite people.
Hmm.
But if you have accurate heart rate data, you can create zones off of that. Or if you run a fast race like a 5K or a 10K, you can use that to calculate like a threshold pace,
Hmm.
and then you can base your zones based on that. So obviously, an elite marathoner's zone one is probably faster than,
Right, like
an
6 minute,
everyday person racer.
5 minute
Yeah,
miles.
right.
Right.
But relative to what they're capable of,
Right. That's their
that's
zone.
easy.
Right.
I mean, my son is a college runner. If I were to go out and run with him, I'd be essentially at my threshold pace, and he'd be looking around
Right.
at birds and trees because you know, he's
Yeah.
20, and it's just relative. But again, it's relative to that athlete's ability. And one of the things that I do most often, especially with athletes that I've just started working with, is convince them to just slow down.
Wow.
Yeah, just slow. Frankly, the woman that we were speaking about earlier,
Yeah.
who's the emergency room doctor, when we first started working together, she had just run a marathon. It was in December of a couple of years ago. She got into the Tokyo Marathon the following March, so it was basically like a 12-week turnaround. And she was telling me about how hard she was training. All of her runs were fast, doing lots and lots of CrossFit. In that 12-week period, I basically just tried to sell her on slowing her easy days down, and I don't even know that she really gained much fitness in that 12-week span, but what she did do is she unloaded all of this fatigue that she was creating by hammering every workout. And she went
Yeah.
14 minutes faster, went 14 minutes faster in the marathon that was 12 weeks later, just because we worked on keeping the fitness, sharpening the fitness, but unloading all of the cumulative fatigue that she was lugging around.
So how is that different than maintenance? I'm just curious. Or could you call that maintenance?
Well, we were
For training
by
volume, these like kind of slower, longer runs. Is that maintenance?
well, it's maintenance in the sense that all year, I mean, things change about your training, whether you're in your race season or it's over the winter and you're kind of in like a maintenance phase. But one thing that never goes away is this easy volume. So I guess in a sense,
Okay.
all year round,
Whatever.
you are making sure that you don't lose that foundational fitness. Yeah.
I
And
think this
I
is
tell,
really, this is like for some people listening to the show, this is new information to understand training because I don't think that's the messaging, right?
I
A lot of
could not
times.
agree more.
I
I could
think
not agree more.
I think the
Yep.
messaging is like you have to crush yourself to
Mhm.
improve and what you're saying and what the Strava study is saying. And I guess if we
Right.
were, to dive more into the research and science behind it, like you said, the science, because I think ultimately you look at the data and the data tells you that this is true, right?
Yeah.
When
And
when your athletes perform better by
right,
listening, by pulling back a bit. It's just a
right.
very different message. It's also a message like it's okay to rest more. It's okay to
Yes.
sleep more,
Mm,
like that balance. And I don't think, like in our culture, I don't even think that we get that message a lot. We're always
no.
like, go, go, go. And,
Yep.
so that's
I totally
interesting. I think that's very interesting. I have a question as you're talking about the data and the science. For somebody like me, I'm definitely a qualitative person. You're a quantitative person. You're a math teacher. I'm a
yeah.
qualitative person. I like to interview people and get their life stories, right? When I think about math and data for training, it's very overwhelming. So how much to be successful, right? To be a top athlete or pers- to really push yourself towards your goals, how much does somebody like me have to understand the data versus rely on our coaches?
So honestly, it depends on the athletes.
Okay.
Some athletes I coach, they want to know the why and they want to know what this weird metric in Training Peaks, what does that mean? And I'm happy to share with them so that we can learn together because I want them to be invested in the process.
Hmm.
And for me personally, when I understand the why behind the what, I'm more likely to buy into it.
Hmm.
Um, some athletes are just like, hey, whatever, you put it on the calendar and I'll do it. Um, and I'm like, okay, but please ask questions. It varies from athlete to athlete, but I
Do
think,
you, do you
go ahead, I'm
think
sorry.
no, that's okay. Because I had one of my questions was, how do you help people get to the starting line with confidence? Do you think
Yeah,
that athletes who are more dialed into their training and their data maybe have more confidence in it? Because it's a little bit like they understand the structure and a little bit, you know, rather than
yeah,
just showing up and going for it.
that's a very good question. If somebody has a big race coming up, one of the
Hmm.
things that I often say is, sometime between now and the time that the gun goes off, go back in your Training Peaks and scroll back. And scroll
Okay.
back. Look at, you've done a lot of work. Go back
Hmm.
and look at all of those workouts and think about how tired you were that week.
Hmm.
Knowing that you're fit and you know, even people who aren't super data driven, when you show them that data and you say, hey, listen, the data doesn't lie. If these are your
Right.
numbers, you're
Gives you
ready.
confidence.
Yeah, you're ready. And that's irrefutable. The data is the data. So, and then knowing that enables them to dig a little deeper because I can tell them, hey, listen, I looked at your numbers. You're a lot fitter than you were a year ago this time. So don't be afraid to, dig in a little deeper when the going gets tough because that fitness is there. So
That's a
sometimes
good,
it's nice to be able to quantify it.
well, that's a good, I have two questions as you're talking. Like one, okay, you do the training, you trust the data, you trust the science, and then you get in there and you just want to push harder.
Yeah.
Do you? Do you go for it or do you stick to the plan?
Well, that's
You
where
know,
the that's
that's
where
the
the right
mental part too, right?
yes, also true. But that's why the right training prescription is so important because, me personally, having run this half marathon yesterday, I spent a lot of time in recent weeks, you know, running at the pace that I was hoping to run yesterday. Um, so one of the things that you'll draw confidence from is knowing I've run this pace a ton. I know I can do it.
Okay.
And to your point, the mental aspect, I would not be doing my athletes a service as their coach if I didn't say to them, listen, you realize there's going to come a moment where you think this was a terrible idea. I went out too fast. What am I doing with my life? Like that 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 happens every time. There always comes a moment in the race where it's a battle between your brain and your body.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the brain wins. A lot of time the brain just talks you out. And, because it only takes one little excuse for, I had this weird cramp and then that was it. And like, that was it. It only takes one little, so one of the bits of advice I give my athletes a lot of times is be ready for three things that you had no idea could possibly happen. Be ready for three weird things to happen because if they're not ready for something unexpected to happen, then the first unexpected thing that happens, like, well, I wasn't expecting that to
It
happen, and then that was
derails
it.
you, right?
Yeah, that's it. One little thing. What about all this fitness that you've built? So if you come in ready, I've read a lot of books about mental toughness. Um, Brad Stolberg is great.
Mhm.
Steve Magnus is great. But one of the things they say is real mental toughness is not you going to the starting line and being like, I got this, no problem. It's gonna feel great. Real mental toughness is going, this is not going to feel great. There's going to come a point not too long from now where I'm going to feel like grim death. And you better be ready to, you know,
Dig
deal
deep.
with that because it's going to happen. If you get from the starting line to the finish line and you felt great the whole way, guess who could have run faster? you
That's
know?
that's a good point. That's a good point. I had on Allison Freeman on a past episode, and she was talking about two different types of happy. What was it? I can't remember now, but it was like type two happiness. It's like happiness and suffering,
Yeah.
you know?
And that kind of goes back to, the messaging I try to send to my students is when you're home doing homework by yourself without your teacher there helping you, that's where you develop the confidence because that's the
Yeah.
first time you go, oh, I can actually do this by myself.
Hmm.
And not backing down from the hard moments in training and not backing down from the hard moments in races, that's where the real growth happens because then you can look back at it and go, man, I did not think I was gonna be able to do that, but I did it,
Yeah,
and
and
now I know I can do it.
I think we learned so many lessons. It's kind of why I parallel the academic journey with the athletic journey. We learned so much about ourselves and we gained so much confidence through sports participation
For sure.
and
Yep.
athletics. I asked Brady Hoover on a past episode this question. I'm curious what you think. With all the training, right? And to show up on race day with confidence, is it better to show up and be a little bit lighthearted about it or to show up super serious about it? Does it matter?
uh,
Is it that
I,
contrived or you just show up and go for it? Like, what do you
so
think the mindset is?
I'll answer your question. This is what I do pretty much every race.
Okay.
I I if I'm at a triathlon or something, uh, I'll go up to somebody who looks super fit,
Terrified?
super ready, super
Oh,
intense.
okay.
And I'll go up to him and I'll go, so you train for this? Or are you just like, I got to joke around. It's because
Okay.
it's like we're all just out here to have it's a silly race. So I'll just go up to somebody and be like, it looks like these people like train for it. And either they laugh or they'd say, "This idiot, get him out of
No,
here."
I'm focused.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I when I went to the World Championship last November, you know,
That's
you have
funny,
to,
by the way. I
yeah,
don't want to
it's
laugh
because
too hard
that's
because it'll take me a
because
while to calm down, but that's funny.
yeah, I mean, if I were at the Olympics, maybe I wouldn't do it, but I just think it. Listen, we're lucky to be there. We're
It
lucky that,
is.
you know. I was going to say though, I at last when I was at the World Championships last November, all of the triathletes, we all have to check our bikes in, and it's wild because it's regular Joes like me, and then literally, oh, there's literally the world champion checking his bike in. So we're walking down. I'm walking next to this one guy. He looks like a cyborg. He's so fit. He's tall. He's thin. He's muscular. He's got his bike that looks like a rocket ship. And I have my bike, which is just kind of like, it's not a regular bike, but it's nothing like that. So I look at him and I go, "Hey, you want to trade bikes?" I, I don't. Now, I looked him up in the results. This guy ends up coming in 12th in the world, literally
Oh my
12th in the world, because I
gosh.
remembered like the number on his bike. So he looks at me. I don't think English was his first language, but I said that to him. And he looks at me and he goes, "No." And then he just walked away.
No.
So, but he's, I mean, I guess when you're going to come in 12th in the world, you got to
You gotta be
lock in, right? Not
serious.
listen. Yeah. But that's my, listen, if you're prepared to race well, unless you're doing something that's deleterious to your performance before the race, talk to people and just
Enjoy
whatever,
it. Enjoy the community.
And then when the gun goes off, you lock in, and that's that.
So it's funny. So my dissertation research was exercise motivation and perspectives of successful aging with older triathletes, 65 and older. So I kind of I enjoyed it so much, the research. And then when I got my PhD and I published my research, I kind of felt like I was interested in these older triathletes. And so then I wrote a couple pieces in Triathlete magazine. And
Nice.
one of the articles was kind of like what it was like back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Hmm.
It was so different. It
Oh my
was,
God.
I mean, some of the examples, if anybody, if you're listening and get a chance to read the article, it was funny because people like literally threw their bikes into transition. They
Mhm.
showed up on whatever they had.
Right.
It was a free for all. And they
Yeah.
just went and they had a great time with it. And
Yep. It's kind of
it's
enviable.
very endearing, when you read
Yeah.
the like what it was like in the beginning, because you were lucky if you put your bike in the transition, it didn't fall over and knock all the other bikes over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It
it's come a
was,
long way.
and at the same time, man, is it amazing that some of those guys and girls went as fast as they did, because they're riding these ridiculous bikes with no aerodynamic benefit whatsoever. And
No technology like now, and
yep.
I think the nutrition was like defizz Coke,
Yeah,
you
which is a
know.
thing, but I mean, compared
No,
compared to the
not all
way
the
athletes
sports,
are on the bike
yeah.
now, oh, it's, yeah, night
Yeah.
and day.
With the feed, they got so many options, and
Hmm.
it's a nice thing to see how things evolve and change. And the interesting thing when I interviewed people, I think they had fond memories, but I don't think they would necessarily want to go back to that. I think that people embrace the technology now,
Yeah,
but I think that they still love it. They still find enjoyment in it. And I thought that was really interesting. So why
very cool.
people, a lot of times people stay in triathlon or long-term adherence to activity and physical activity because they have fun. They enjoy it,
Yep,
you know?
yep.
So that's the
It's fun.
thing. The data
It's
is
fun
important,
to
but we
feel
still
good,
have to have
fun,
fun.
healthy.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see. Well, that's good. That's a good segue to my next question. We have a little bit more time. I have a couple more questions. So how important, so we understand the data, we understand, being focused, the hard work in your mind, in your experience, how important are the medals? Like I notice medal Mondays. I notice that a lot. Coaches have do medal Mondays
Yeah,
and the PRs. Like how important, how much do you emphasize all of that? And
I I don't emphasize it in the sense that I don't try to make it seem like this is the point of the whole thing,
okay.
but I love doing Metal Monday posts for my athletes, because training is a big commitment when you're a parent and you take the train into the city to work. Like we're just, we're kind of just regular people.
Right.
So you deserve kudos when you
Right.
manage to improve as an athlete, given all of these life constraints. I love doing Metal Mondays,
Yeah.
because ultimately you're doing this thing, you're doing this race to feel good about yourself. And
Mhm.
even if the race doesn't go magically the way you hoped it would, you deserve to be celebrated for that. You worked hard, you got your butt down the shore, at 6 o'clock in the morning and ran this windy half marathon.
Yeah.
So,
It's fun.
yeah.
It makes it fun. Yeah.
So
I like
I,
that.
I'm not a results driven coach in the sense that I'm not going to say, listen, man, I know you wanted to hit this time and it didn't happen. So I guess you stink now. Like that's not really it. It's just, can we zoom out? Are we getting better over the long term? Can we learn something? If the race didn't go great, can we figure out why and work off of it and improve for the next one? And it's not, the improvement is not always linear. Like there's going to be ups and downs, and as long as you're, like I said, it's not a bad day unless you don't learn from it.
Hmm.
So you have a good day, awesome. Why did it go well? And if you had a bad day, okay, let's figure out what happened and we'll get it the next time.
Yeah, it's like it's the fun part of it, but it doesn't, I don't think it keeps people in it, right? I think it's the sense of community. I think
Yep.
you as a coach from, just reading just the way people view you, I mean, as like a friend and you're always there for them. And it's just, you go above and beyond and it's just the connections, I think that, that has such a big part of it. It's so much more than just the training and the data. You become like, you go on this journey together. It's
Yeah,
nice.
I think it
Really
helps
nice.
also that
You
I'm
know?
competing with them and training with them.
Yeah.
Um, I think and I have two amazing assistant coaches who are unbelievable athletes themselves. And
Hmm.
I think that's important because we're all trying to lead by example, and we're not telling any of our athletes to go do something that we're not doing ourselves.
Yourselves.
So we can see that we're all in this journey together. It's a journey for health and journey for achieving goals.
Absolutely. So when I was looking at your website, and I mentioned to you before we started to record, you spotlighted the Pinecone Project. And I was like,
Right.
oh, this person sounds so interesting. And I was going to ask you, could you introduce me to her? Lo and behold, it's your wife.
Yes.
And I thought it was funny because you said to me, it's a very different frame of mind
Right.
between the way you train and her, um, the Pinecone Project. So just real quickly, can you share with our listeners what you shared with me about that? It was
Sure. So
funny, actually.
my wife Kate, in addition to being an amazing marathoner and runner on the roads, is an unbelievable trail runner. She really blows my mind. Some of the things she accomplishes, and she has her own coaching outfit called the Pinecone Project. And she coaches, similar to me, she coaches adult athletes who have jobs and kids, and we're just kind of trying to make the most of the available hours that we have. But triathlon coaching and trail running coaching are, and as they should be, very different.
Okay.
You if a runner who thinks they know a certain pace that they should be running goes out and runs on trails, go ahead and throw that pace right out the window. That is
Mhm.
not even what it's about. It's running, but it's a completely different animal, and as such, it needs to be coached that way.
Differently.
Um, yeah, so Kate, she's run 50Ks and 100Ks and 100 milers, and she's
Wow.
amazing. She's the most mentally tough person I know. She like runs overnight. She starts when it's light. She runs overnight when it's dark, and then suddenly it's light again, and there she is. She's just a phenomenal, physically and mentally, just a phenomenal athlete.
That's
And
incredible. I would love to have the two of you on together.
yeah, I mean, have her on and pick her brain because, um,
Yeah, because
she,
I like
she
to learn more about that mindset, the trail running mindset. I think that that's interesting. It's much more, well, I don't know. I don't know.
it, there's a
What do you
level of
think?
mental, there's a level of grit and mental toughness there was one race where I was crewing for her. It was a 100-mile race, actually a little longer than 100 miles, and some crazy stuff happened to that race during that race, which she can share with you. But it was a
Okay.
loop course. It was 10.5 mile loops.
Wow.
And in my mind, because I'm not nearly as mentally tough as she is, every time you come in from a loop and sit down, to me, that's an opportunity to be like, I'm good. The car. I can see the car. Let's get out of here. And there were some times overnight where she came in and sit down, and in my mind, I'm thinking, this has to be it. She has to be done now. She gets right back up and off she goes. I'm like, unbelievable. Just
So,
the amount of mental toughness that you need to be a trail runner is mind-boggling to me.
well, I would love to have her on the show. I definitely will talk, afterwards. And I'd love to know where that comes from because I
Yeah,
think these are lessons I call you all resilience warriors, but it's true and these are lessons that we can apply to life. That's the whole point of this. Like it's amazing to go after these athletic goals. It's good for us physically, mentally, but we can take these lessons of, resiliency and apply it to other things that, come across our paths that,
totally agree.
in life. So it's
Yeah,
just I'd love to get to have the opportunity to have her on the show.
sure.
Okay, so tell us, I know that you're going to be presenting at the NSCA, New Jersey State Clinic. Tell it on May 2nd, that's coming up. Tell us about
Right.
that.
So it's the National Strength and Conditioning Association.
Okay.
They have, meetings around the country, but
Hmm.
their New Jersey chapter meeting is coming up on May 2nd in Raritan, New Jersey. Maybe we can post a link in the
Sure.
notes. And I'll be speaking there about endurance training, and there'll be several other coaches, physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches from colleges and universities. It's just going to be a really great panel of knowledgeable people. And I'm looking forward to just, obviously I'm looking forward to speaking, but I'm really looking forward to just sitting there all day and listening to,
Just learning.
smart, qualified
Yeah,
people who work with athletes every day and just want to hear what they have to offer. I'm really excited.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely put that link in there.
Thank you.
Are you taking new clients? Do you want to have people reach out to you in any way, or how does that look? Or I know you have assistant, I know you're the head coach and you have assistant
Right.
coaches. How can
Yep.
people reach you?
So we can share my contact information in the podcast notes. Um, but I'm Capuzzo Multisport Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook. You can go to the website, cmctri.com, cmctri.com. My phone number is on there. You're welcome to text me. I text with my athletes all the time. My email is coachpaul@cmctri.com. So any way that they want to get in touch with me, they're welcome to. I just
Okay,
love to talk to athletes about their training and how we can make it better.
that's awesome. I'll put all that information in the notes too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another statement that I pulled from one of your platforms. The best training plan is the one that fits your life. So with that statement, I want to give you this opportunity to say whatever you like to say to our listeners, from your experience as a coach, as a teacher, and as an athlete yourself.
Right. Oh, thank you. I think it just speaks to the value of having a coach. I know there AI coaching is out there. It's
Hmm.
available. Some people use it. Some people do fine with it. There are zero top triathletes, top marathoners who are using AI for their coaching because in my estimation, the way you succeed is by having a back and forth with somebody who can answer any of your questions and can tell you the why and can tell you about other athletes that they've coached that
Hmm.
experienced this or that. Um, so that's why it's important to have a coach who, if you have to say to them, listen, I have 6 hours in a week. That's all I have. What can we do with those 6 hours? Um, and that's where it's the coach's role to come in and make the best use of the athlete's available hours. Um, by contrast, there are some athletes who would run through a wall if you didn't tell them not to, and you have to tell them, hey, I really think this is probably the most we should do, but let's do it 10 weeks in a row and keep stacking those bricks, and I think you'll see the results. Um, So yeah, it's that's the fun of being a coach. Different athletes, different ages, different injury histories, different constraints and limitations. I've coached athletes that have little kids, and what am I going to say? Oh, hey, ignore your kids on Saturday when I go ride your bike for 5 hours. It's not going to happen. So
Yeah, it
that's
has to
why,
fit your life. We said that
yeah,
earlier on. It has to fit your lifestyle
yeah, and we can make it
or
work.
become your lifestyle if you want, but
Yeah,
something has
yeah.
to.
So there's always a balance, and everybody's puzzle is different, and there's always a way to make it work and help that athlete grow. And that's where a good coach comes in. That's why I love doing what I do.
That's awesome. Such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Um, Definitely want to get your wife on. And yeah, I wish all your well, one athlete who's gonna do Boston. It's next Monday.
Yes, actually, too. My wife is going to do it, and
Your wife too?
yep, and the emergency room doctor that I was telling you about earlier, she's doing
Yeah.
it for the first
So
time.
I wish them both a great race. Brady, who was on, and he lives up there. It was snowing the other day.
Oh, this winter, man,
He
this was
he was
not easy
on. Yeah, he
coming
was
through.
on. He was on the show. I was like, is it snowing in your background? And so hopefully it won't be snow for Boston, but I think the projection is it's going to be like maybe in the 60s or something.
Good,
So
good.
I wish everybody all the best. I really appreciate your time coming on the show. We learned so much from you guys, so we appreciate that. And yeah, that's anything
Thank you.
else?
No, thank you so much. This was a delightful conversation. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank
Thank
you so
you so much.
much. All right, I'm going to just sign off. Thank you everybody for listening. Episode 58 with Paul Capuzzo, founder and head coach of Capuzzo Multisport Coaching. I'm going to put all his contact information in the notes for this podcast episode. And as you can tell, he's very passionate about what he does. So I'm sure he would love to hear from you. All right, as always, so grateful to educate and motivate on the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. Thank you. Bye bye.